Welcome to the Mission Driven Leader, presented by TaleoConnects.com, where we explore the new, unknown, and innovative themes for work and give people the ability to show up resilient every day. Here are your hosts, former Chief Knowledge Officer of NASA, Ed Hoffman, and partner and Vice President of Portfolio Management at Taleo, Laurel Sim.
Well, welcome back to the Mission Driven Leader podcast, Ed. I'm always excited when I get to see your face.
Absolutely. It's always good to see you and speak to you, Laurel. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, we've been spending so much time together at Columbia University and these podcasts. I feel like maybe, we should probably start a business together or something.
Absolutely. Do I come up to Calgary, or do you come down to the Eastern Shore?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't know if you're quite set up for the Canadian backlashing that we would give an American, but we'll do what we can.
I can anticipate it.
Well, Dave, I want to introduce a friend that I call a friend. I've known him for about 4 years, David Nedohin. He not only does he have amazing business accolades, but he also has amazing Canadian sporting accolades that we're going to talk a little bit about today. Dave Nedohin is the co-founder and the chief customer officer. I think we need a lot more chief customer officers out in the world, by the way, for Scope AR. And he brings a lot of experience to not only business development, but looking at the customer experience from the beginning to the end of the journey, and maybe even just a little bit of revolutionizing how we think about training, and looking at the field of support for AR technology, of which I'm very curious about. I'm not going to lie to you. But if we look at the other part of Dave's life, he's in the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame, Ed. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Yes.
No, I didn't see that on your LinkedIn.
I wanted to keep that a secret. Yeah, so he was inducted just this past year, but he has had so many successes in his sporting career, and now he has the opportunity to also be the assistant coach for his daughter, who just finished winning silver in Canadian Worlds B curling in Finland, of which I attended. They even let me go there. Yeah. So pretty cool stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to lie to you that he's coaching some pretty special young ladies right now, and I'm excited to see the differences and the nuances that he's bringing to the table from way back when we used to curl. So, Dave, why don't we get started with your business side of things? Because otherwise, I think I'll just overshare on the curling side, and talk a little bit about AR. Give us a little bit of an understanding of what that actually means for our audience, and then let's break it down to what good customer experience looks like.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate that, and it's been a pleasure, like you said, over the last 4 or 5 years, spending time with you. And obviously, we have. I think one of the reasons that the team is so successful is that we have an amazing group of people around it. So that's the whole support network and friends and families. And without that, there's no way these girls would be able to reach, the heights that they are right now. And they have to go out and do it ultimately, but there's a, it takes a village to raise a family, no different with an elite athlete or a curling team like this. So anyway, it's been a pleasure getting to know you and spending time with you, and Ed, it's very nice to meet you as well. So yeah, I guess from a business perspective, as you mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Scope AR. So the AR stands for augmented reality. We started, actually founded here in Edmonton, Alberta, it's been 10 years now, a little over 10 years. And now we have offices in San Francisco and Tel Aviv, and kind of people, about 50 employees around the world. And Ed, the real focus in our industries that we align to are very much your background. So NASA being an example of a customer, we focus in aerospace and aviation and medical device, and kind of like those customers that have like big expensive problems that they're trying to fix. So We just started with a more local company, Laurel, with WestJet as an
Oh,
example.
fantastic.
So they're a new customer of ours, for example, there. But yeah, it's all about, we say training, but it's almost the opposite of training. It's just making sure that people know how to do things right at the moment they need to know how to do it. So taking all of those best practices and not hoping that your paper instruction is up to date or where it is, and then, how long does it take somebody to get it, and how do you validate somebody did something right. So really just taking all those best practices, making sure that they're all completely up to date, delivering them through some sort of hardware device right in front of the worker when and where they need those instructions. So, as an example, if somebody's working on, changing a tire on a 737, and that's what they've been trained on, for many years, and all of a sudden a 787 rolls into the hangar and they've got to work on that one. Do you wait until somebody who's trained on that actually shows up there, and it's kind of like there's not as many of those people? Do you give them paper instructions and hope they do it right? Do you fly in an expert from somebody else to do it, or can you provide those instructions right there when and where they need it, and quite literally overlaid right on top of the equipment, so when they're looking at it, they see exactly what to do. They see animations of parts moving and take this off, and you can validate all of that through all sorts of ways of checklist items that ties into the organization system of record, whether they're using whatever system of record it might be. So all of that data is then captured, and that data becomes obviously very powerful as you want to validate that people have done things correctly, and the worker wants to validate they've done it correctly. So saving time, reducing errors, reducing training time, and just improving efficiency overall of the organizations. And so it's, like I said, those big expensive problems, how do we make sure somebody does it right, especially with things that fly? I mean, you probably don't want to make any mistakes, right?
Not on my flights.
Ideally not.
Yeah. It directly aligns to what Ed used to do, or I'll let you speak to it, Ed, obviously. But when you were at NASA and you created your knowledge practice there, this is a input to that practice, I would suspect. So I know that you're probably just chewing up what you want to say here.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested in that. And one of the questions I'll ask you is the difference between augmented and virtual reality is something I think of interest. In my years at NASA tends to use a good amount of simulation-based training, which is you want to make the environment for what people are learning to do as realistic as possible. There was one case, I forget the company, it was an Italian company. You could go into a room, large room, and you could make it dark. And then on the screen in front, you'd actually be able to see like the International Space Station. So if you're an astronaut, you can kind of hook up to it. You can enter it to seeing kind of the, what it would look like. You can go to different parts of the universe as if you were exploring it. I know that in terms of aircraft, at NASA Ames, they had a place, or they use software where you could train a pilot. And actually, they had me landing in Kennedy Airport. Unfortunately, I crashed the plane. But it's such a good replica that people can use it to understand what the airspace is all like. I wonder if you can then talk. So is that what augmented reality is compared to virtual, and is that how you use it for learning? It's taking you to a real environment and practicing the skills.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that's the first question that everybody asks, is like trying to understand the difference between the virtual and the augmented reality. And so, I mean, you described virtual reality perfectly. You could put yourself on the moon or the ISS or under the water or on a train, completely different environments. So fully digital world, great for simulation, great for training. You could be learning how to, land a plane, like you said. Augmented reality is just improving your real world with some sort of digital information. So still using that same type of content. Maybe in the case of the International Space Station as an example, which, by the way, is actually an effort that we're working on right now to support some of the astronauts there. But as an example, if somebody's training in a simulation room on the ISS, they're there, right? They're in the ISS, even though they're down on Earth, and they're doing some sort of tasks and understanding maybe where pieces of equipment might be or procedures they have to follow to do a certain task. Now you get up into space on the ISS, and maybe something breaks, right? So you don't have all of these experts in every single thing that could possibly go wrong there, But what you can do is pull up the best practices on your hardware device. Like, we support various wearables, things like Microsoft HoloLens, or potentially just on your smartphone or tablet, point it out we're looking at, or point at the equipment, or potentially have the wearables look at the equipment. It recognizes and says, okay, well, here's a bunch of instructions. What do you want to do? Well, I want the expertise on how to like repair this component. And it would load those. And now all of a sudden in your real world, you're seeing those animations on top of the real equipment. So you can just follow them step by step by step. So yeah, virtual reality is literally a virtual world. Augmented reality is improving your real world with some sort of digital information. It could be as basic as, I'm sure we've all held our phone up with certain apps to some sort of point of interest, a mountain, and it gives you like, oh, this is the mountain type, the mountain name, the elevation, and whatever else it might be. And that's augmented reality. It's augmenting your real world with some sort of digital information. So that's the difference. And both, I think, have lots of use cases. It really comes down to what is the journey that person's going to go through, and how do you best make sure they're prepared to complete that task correctly. And it could start with training or simulation off the start. And then at the point where you're doing the work, it's probably going to be more augmented reality versus like finding a room and getting it all set up and being in a virtual environment, which can be very expensive, versus just pulling up your hardware device and loading those instructions. So I think all of that technology plays a role in terms of how organizations are looking at leveraging digital technology just to make sure that somebody does something right. And you can reduce or I guess reduce time or build efficiency in how they're doing that, right? So and workers, and this we're talking about astronauts who obviously are we think of them as maybe the cream of the crop in terms of like mental aptitude and being able to be really I guess forward thinking in terms of what they're doing. But it could be really, you look at all organizations and the workforce that's coming into it. The workforce wants to leverage technology. They don't want to go into an organization and go, oh great, I've got 1,000 pages of PDFs I want to read in order to learn how to do my job. They want to know that the organization is leveraging technology. So I think that we're seeing that now kind of filter down through all sorts of organizations, not just somebody like NASA or Lockheed Martin or something like that. So a good example.
I purchased, not under, but familiar with. I mean, it's a great example. We were purchasing bookcases for a room, and the supplier had, I guess, what you call augmented reality. I can actually pick out what I was looking for, and it would place the bookcase I was looking to with the colors and everything in the spot, so that it looked real, and I was able to see how it would measure, and the use of that. So you have things like that. I think medical doctors now use that in terms of some of their surgery. So that's very exciting.
Yeah. It's definitely, I think, hardware devices are now at the point where they can support augmented reality a lot easier. Like, you don't think about it, but your phone's got all these pieces of technology in it that can actually map your environment around you. So if you wanted to place, a medical device company wants to place a piece of equipment on it to train somebody on how to do that, you just hold their phone up, it'll scan the table in front of them, you can place it, and you can walk through the instructions like that equipment is actually sitting in front of you. So it's becoming more and more common. I mean, everybody's assembled IKEA furniture one time or another and gone, oh, well, it tells me to skip to page 23. I'm not doing that. That doesn't seem right. So you do it your own way. And then, of course, you get down the road and you realize it's completely wrong. And then you have to go back and redo it all. But, with augmented reality, you would just look at the pieces on the floor and you would go, okay, well, this piece goes here, put this fastener in here. It would basically take away that chance of any sort of mistakes.
It's quite interesting that we're moving down towards these technologies, but yet your title is Chief Customer Officer, and in your bio, in my opinion, you take great pride in moving along that journey and actually evolving the practice of a good customer experience. Can you just highlight a little bit for us, why you feel it's so important, and what are the key attributes that maybe you bring to the table or your company brings to the table that really set you apart?
Well, I think the customer journey, from our perspective, is probably one of the most important pieces of what we focus on as a company, because we have very dedicated customers, customers that come back and continue to work with us over and over. And I mean, the technology is amazing. I mean, I could go on about why Scope AR is the best software and things like that. But really it comes down to valuing the customer in terms of, why are they engaging with us? What's the problem they're trying to solve? What separated Scope AR from working with another vendor? And how do we make sure that they can reach the goals, that they're looking for? So we spend a lot of time really mapping out what that journey looks like, and ultimately making sure that they can show some sort of value, some sort of ROI as we move down that journey. And I think part of the importance of that for us is that we're not, this industry is not a software that people just go, oh, we know how to buy that right away, and they're just going to implement it. It's not a Salesforce. I guess Salesforce would have lots of customization too, but it really is, I think, a fairly innovative technology that most of the people that are engaging with off the start are, typically innovation teams. So they need to understand really where the problems are that they're solving with their buyer, and the buyer could typically be an internal organization or internal customer. So they need to really understand what those problems are that they're trying to solve, and how do we actually, measure against that. So, at some point their leadership is going to go, oh, that's really great, these projects you did. What was the impact on the organization? So if we can help them really understand how to align to those, understand the business needs, connect with that business value, and show some sort of ROI on it, then it's easy for them to go, great, this is why we engage with it, and they can really feel good about the investment that they've made. We had certain metrics, for example, working with Lockheed Martin on the Orion shuttle as an example. They were able to do things like reduce the time to information. So they have this idea of this OODA loop, which is observe, orient, and decide. So you take your paper instructions and you observe it, and then you try and figure out where does that mean on the real world, and then they have to decide if they're doing it right before they can actually finally do the work. They're able to reduce that time to information, that observe, orient, and decide, by 95%, because all they have to do is put the HoloLens on or a hardware device, look at the equipment, and it's all right there. You can't make a mistake.
I probably could still make a mistake, David, but
I don't know. It'd be
you're the 5%. You've always been the 5%, Laurel.
Imagine all of these fasteners, 500 fasteners on this one piece of metal, but there's 25 different sizes of holes that you have to drill, and 25 different types of torque settings. If all you did was look at it and the first ones showed up all in red, you go, okay, well, that's this hole and this torque setting. You could go up and tighten them all, and it proved that you actually did the torque setting right. And then said next, and the next ones would show up in blue. You would have to actually go and find one that's not blue and still actually tighten it for some reason. I don't know why you would do that, but
nobody knows why I do what I do, David. I think that's part of the problem. Yeah.
But I love working with the customers. I love understanding what their problems are. I really enjoy saying, here's how we can actually provide a solution that's going to generate value for you. At the end of the day, it's about showing that value and building efficiency, and helping that person we work with be showcased as, hey, you were the one that took the risk, you engaged in this technology, and it's showing a return on it. And I really enjoy that part of working with the customers in that way.
So I've got to follow up, because one of the things you're saying also excites me. Many of the students that I teach at Columbia, they're knowledge professionals. And one of the greatest challenges they have in talking to organizations and clients is how to explain the importance of knowledge, which is a very intangible concept. It's a relatively new one. You talk about your company really leveraging augmented reality software to promote expert knowledge that's accessible when and where you want it. Do you have to explain to customers or to the larger community why they need to worry about knowledge, what it is, and relate it to work, or is that not an issue? And if you do, how do you do that? Is there a example that you give in terms of knowledge for an organization, whether it's a plane or a team?
Yeah, I think knowledge can also be dangerous if it's incorrect, right? So I think of versioning.
We've seen that,
example, right? So, one of the examples I remember seeing, this is a number of years ago, was when I was at the Boeing factory in Seattle. They didn't allow paper instructions on the floor just in case somebody had an outdated version of the instructions. So they were following the wrong ones and they did it wrong. Well, that's a very big problem. So I think knowledge is just about, from our world, it's about making sure that somebody does something right at the time they need to do it. So knowledge is really, I mean, that's ultimately what it is. But if you have the wrong information, it can be disastrous to many organizations. So, that, I mean, a lot of organizations that we talk to will say, well, we have all the expertise, we have the knowledge. But the question is, do you have it exactly where you need it, when you need it, or how do you get it to that
Right.
person and validate it they did it correctly? So, and the workforce changing so rapidly in every kind of industry is a major driving factor to this. When you think about the aging workforce, the transient workforce, the fact that it's really hard to keep people beyond 2 or 3 years, and it's really expensive to hire people. When you bring somebody on, you need that knowledge in their hands right away so they can do
Yeah.
something correctly, but it needs to be the right knowledge. So things like tying into or connecting to like a PLM system that manages all of their CAD information and all their work instructions, and making sure that when there's a change in those instructions that it's reflected. And the minute there's a change in that information, it actually filters down through the augmented reality scenarios, and that the person that's doing the work on the floor has the right instructions. So not only is knowledge important to capture, but it's important to make sure it's delivered, you know, or the right information is delivered to that person who needs it. So that's how we kind of talk about
I
knowledge.
love that definition. That's
Yeah.
what, when I was at NASA, one of the things I would say is, knowledge is in having the capability to do what you need to do when the pressure's on. And it's not that you can get it. It's the fact that you have it very quickly, right? Because sometimes you have really quick decisions you make. You have knowledge that, can you retain it over a period of years and decades? Does it get shared? But I love that definition that you used, and it makes, I think, a lot of clarity.
The 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 one thing that I was curious about, because you are doing so much work on creating that customer experience, is it not actually creating a better customer experience for the client with their customers? Like, are you not actually doing another layer down because of what you're actually bringing to the table with this new approach? And I'm going to call it a new approach. It's been around for a little bit, but it is still very, very new to many organizations, right? Um, so I believe that you are actually changing the customer face for your customer down the line as well. Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely, I agree with that. Yeah, our customers are still responsible to make sure they're delivering best practices and an experience to their customers. And so, in cases of, like, we have several additive manufacturing companies, like, the big 3D printers, they sell them to customers all over the world, and they need to make sure that they're set up and calibrated and maintained. They might have their own internal, technicians, or our customer probably has contractors they work with. So now you've got these machines that are all over the world. You need to have consistency in how somebody actually services that equipment, or how do you make sure you get it up and running, or how you make sure you manually do the operations correctly on it. So that's all delivered through our software to make sure that their customer has that experience that they're looking for. So when you talk about improved efficiency, it's not just to our customer, but then, to your point, it's being filtered down to theirs as well. And we have, honestly, we have some customers. A good example would be Mitsubishi Heavy Industries corrugated manufacturing. So they build these big machines that make and fold boxes. So, like, when obviously COVID hit, and Amazon, like, and all these delivery services, like, just absolutely exploded, and companies like Mitsubishi had to deliver more machines to their customers all the time. They're now delivering them preloaded with iPads with all the work instructions to actually service it, so they don't have to send somebody out to fix it and take all that time to get it up and running again. So it's actually become a revenue stream for our customer, right? So we license to them, they now license to their customers, and it's become a revenue stream for them. So it's that's another way
Wow,
that you can
that's
look at
great.
how you leverage that expertise in a way that changes the way they interact with their customers.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I do we do have to go to commercial. So Dave, when we come back, we're actually going to change our focus a little bit and talking about your coaching and taking care of the youth that are coming up to take over the world. Before we go into commercial, I do always have a special question that I would like answered when you get back. So I really need to know what your favorite treat of all time is. Ed is, what do you call those? Mooncakes? Mooncakes?
Funny bones.
Oh, what are they?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll be right back.
It is an old candy with strange kind of peanut butter at the center. So,
That sounds awesome.
Chocolate on the outside.
Maybe it sounds good. Okay, we'll be right back.
We'll get back to the rest of the episode in just a moment, but first, a word from our presenting sponsor, TaleoConnects.com. As a manager, you know how important it is to solve issues right the first time. If you don't, you risk wasting precious time, money, and resources on things that could make the problem even worse. That is why at Taleo, we start by getting to the root cause of your specific problem, so that together, we can implement the solution that gets you the results you are looking for the first time. Taleo's unique approach to management consulting and resourcing is focused on building a community of experts that work together to help clients solve complex problems and find success in their businesses. We work collaboratively with you to implement the solution that will solve the root cause of your problem, not just the symptoms of that problem. From management consulting and project management to staff augmentation and resource recruitment, Taleo's trusted team can help you take your organization to the next level. If you're interested in learning more about how Taleo can help you overcome your organization's obstacles and take your business to the next level, visit TaleoConnects.com today.
We're back to the mission-driven leader, and I'm still laughing at my mooncakes. I think that's a real thing. I'm gonna investigate it after this. But Dave, out of all the treats that you could have in the world, what is your favorite go-to, so that the next time I see you, I can bring it?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm pretty straightforward with that. I just I love nacho chips. That's my. I love nacho chips, just all different kinds. But
can't go wrong with nacho chips.
Yeah, easy to get.
But my special treat you wouldn't be able to find, because of course it goes back to my mom's baking, right? And with Christmas just finishing, she makes the most amazing Nanaimo bar, and it's quite honestly, and I know everyone says this about their mom's baking, well, but it's, you know, I mine is true. Nobody can make it quite like her. There's no question.
Yeah. Did you save some for me? Like, are we going to be able to taste it someday? No.
Believe me, it's here and it's gone so fast. My kids eat it. Like, actually, my other daughter was here from Michigan in Canada in the summer, and I didn't know, but she took a big cooler and stuffed it in her bag and took a whole bunch back to Michigan. And when she flew back, we're just like, really? You took all the cake?
That was smart. That was a good move. And actually, Ed, that leads to something else that I wanted to share, is that Dave's entire family is made up of athletes, and I don't want to discredit any of the household. So believe it or not, we've actually interviewed his wife. Heather is his wife.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So right. I wanted to surprise you with that. So you got Heather's big strategy head on in the house, and then their other daughter, she's going to university in Michigan and playing lacrosse. No,
she's playing field lacrosse. Yeah, she decided to take a different path from mom and dad and wanted to do more physical sports, and she played ringette and lacrosse, and with just a team that didn't exist here. There was no field lacrosse in Edmonton, but this group decided to get together, and they started traveling around when they were 12, 13 years old, and they stuck together for about 5 or 6 years until they all graduated from high school. And I think out of that core group of let's say 12 or 15 of them, I think at least 10 or 12 of them ended up going to school down in the U.S. with lacrosse scholarships. It was an amazing story, actually.
Isn't that fantastic?
Sounds like another podcast is coming up. We'll have the whole family pretty soon.
It would be. There was something special.
We can capture your whole family.
Yeah, there was something special about that group for sure. So I don't think I've never heard of anything quite like that before, where you start with not even the sport here, and they all ended up where they did. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, That's a great story. And speaking of great stories, I think just watching the curling expand in Canada for the youth and get to the level of capability and skill that is here now is very impressive. And I would like to say that both you and Heather are kind of at the front of that in supporting curling for Canada, and most certainly the youth path and that sort of thing. I was curious, from the years of when you were curling at an elite level to where you're coaching now, how has coaching changed? How has it evolved, or has it evolved?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything evolves. There's no question. I think we talked about technology in the first part of the segment, and I think that that definitely ties into how coaching has changed. I mean, we leverage all sorts of different tools that I never would have imagined were possible when I was playing, and we have all these great resources of what is the perfect technical delivery, and what is the exact right strategy based on the analytics and statistics and everything we know about the game, and percentages and probabilities of winning and losing. And so now when you go out and practice, we can take advantage of some of those things. We have these great camera systems that we can analyze and dissect the kids' deliveries to make sure. And this is the same thing you do for the top men's or women's teams, to really align them with like what will give you the best chance at making the shot that you're going to throw. And so when I think when I was in juniors, we didn't have that technology. In fact, I think the first time I saw myself throw a rock on being recorded, it was during a game when I was probably 20 years old, and I was like, "That's how I look." I had no idea that's how I looked when I threw, right? So yeah, there's a big benefit to that. I think that it comes with some of the maybe there's pros and cons to it, right? I think that everything is great because it's so structured and we can deliver the best information. But probably the con to it is that everything's so structured, and that people probably just, you think about, I know I was related to hockey. I mean, guys like Wayne Gretzky and Mark Messier, they'd go out and play shinny on the hockey on the pond all day long, and their skills would just be crazy, right? And now it's like, are you going to practice? When's my scheduled practice? Like, everything's very structured now, which takes away a little bit, I think, from that ability just to naturally groom the talent that you have. And so that being said, the kids today are way better than we were that age because they have the benefits of all the resources and information and technology. But you have to remember that at the end of the day, they're still kids. They need to go play and they need to have fun. And you're gonna grow sometimes more by just going and doing something yourself and figuring it out than always having that structure to it. So I feel like there's got to be that fine balance between those two. But the kids today, they would have destroyed us compared to when we were kids. They're just that much better.
How do you create that space to make sure that it's not structured all of the time, but still keeping the structure in place? Like, how do you create that balance? And is it intentional, or is it a little bit lopsided?
It's hard. It's hard to do that because I think everything in their environment, in their world today, is all about structure and technology and that type of thing. So it really is a difficult thing to, I think, have actually happen. But I think part of it is we try to have a schedule that's not as busy as maybe some others would have their schedule, meaning competition. Like last year, we were not forced, but I mean, we chose to play in 3 national championships. And to do that, we had to earn points through this tour system. And we were playing almost every single weekend, and it became absolutely exhausting, which was not the way that I would like to see it designed. I mean, I think this year is a much better year in terms of we have the ability to back down a little bit in terms of the amount that we are playing, so we can have rest time and we can have time for them to be kids and hanging out with their friends, and they can just go out and throw rocks with each other. And I think Heather, as an example, you interviewed her. She's the greatest at just building fun events at her curling club that are inclusive and all about community. And these kids get a chance to go to those sorts of things and be part of it because they're really drawn into this almost adult world of all of the process and resources and structure. And sometimes you got to bring them back to being a kid, like bonspiels where you dress up like Halloween characters, or just going out and having fun with your friends on the ice and doing those sorts of things, or pizza parties or whatever it might be. So I think just trying to remember that these kids, and in our case, these girls, are 16, 17, 18 years old, and they need to have fun, right? Not everything can be completely structured and based on analytics and data.
I'm wondering, it's really intriguing because I spent my life around really learning and development. And you mentioned that the children today have a great advantage, in sports because they have visual tools that allow them to see how they're doing things, and they probably have a better sense of even when they're, you know, um, spending too much time or not enough time. What are some of the key technologies that you're seeing that has really an impact in terms of how people learn, whether it's sports for children or in general?
Well, we use a number of tools. Some during games, like we've got a great application that we can track every single shot and every single rock, so that we can
Hmm.
see the statistical analysis of this is where the player is really strong. This is where they're struggling a little bit. These are the types of shots that maybe we need to work on. So we have that information. Then we have a lot of video of ourselves during games that we play in. We also have video of all the other teams,
Yeah.
so we can go online and we can see what our competition is doing, and we know the styles and strategies that they're going to play, so that there's no real surprises. It's not like they step out there and all of a sudden they're just like blown away because this team does something unconventional that they're not used to seeing. We also have the ability to watch some of the best players and, quite honestly, play with some of the best players in the world. So we have that benefit here in Canada and where we live locally of having some of the top women's teams in the world right here. And a lot of times they're out there together and they see them practicing and they see them doing those same types of things where we'll set up all the cameras and the drills and they're like, do we need to do this again? Or, the mechanical stuff. They look over and they see the best teams in the world doing that two sheets of ice over. They realize that is what it takes. So yeah, those are the types of things, and then of course the data and analytics behind probabilities of winning and losing, and what to do in certain situations. And there's sometimes that doesn't always work, and you need to go with your experience and gut instinct, and I truly believe in that. But the analytics and probabilities are a big part of understanding what to do at certain times, right? So all of those, the things you hear about in every other sport, like baseball in particular, with all that information and the analysis and data and video camera work and mechanics of like the swing motion or the pitching motion, those are all the same types of things that we use in curling as well.
The the one thing that you can't get from technology and that sort of thing is mental toughness. That's something that some people are naturally better with. There's lots of coaching approaches to it. I did business coaching years and years ago to strengthen my mental toughness, because I would find that I would get upset and frustrated, usually because somebody was being a donkey, Ed. It's my favorite term, really. And
A donkey.
yeah, donkey, yeah. And I couldn't get past it, and so I actually took a lot of coaching on mental toughness and how to evaluate right in the moment, how I'm feeling, how I need to shift, what I need to do in order for that donkey to turn into a beautiful mare. uh, Anyways, that was a separate joke. Sorry, Dave. But
That's,
but
as long as you enjoy your jokes, it's okay.
yeah, right. It's fine. They're my jokes to myself. But the point is that now I'm getting to the real point of my story. Is mental toughness is something that I think that if we all had the opportunity to get coaching on business coaching, athletic coaching, we would be better off for it. And some people naturally have it, and some people can absorb it quickly and learn from it. And then there's others that will break their sticks on the ice for the rest of their career. Dave, how are you helping to work through mental toughness, and how much of a priority do you put on it for your team?
Well, lots, and I think it's yeah, just as you pointed out, it's an extremely important part of their success, of really success in anything that you do. Um, the well, we didn't have those resources when we were younger, necessarily, so we had to sort of develop those skills on our own. What's great now, and I really think it's helpful to them, is there is a lot of resources, and we're very fortunate to have a great mental coach that helps the girls. And is there to listen and give them skills and tips and advice. And I think especially more important even today than ever before, not only to be strong on the ice, but also to be strong off the ice. And that means strong is not meaning like fear strong, but more about being almost resilient to the types of things that could bring you down. And I specifically am thinking of like social media as like a good example of something that you need to have mental coaching to help you with. So oftentimes our girls can be, and this isn't just our girls, but I mean, any young person can be amazing at what they do. But then the first thing that happens when they come off the ice or their playing surface is they've got all the social media that's coming in. And without question, the people that are the detractors are the loudest. And that's really, really hard for them, right? And it affects their performance on the ice, and it affects their relationships with their teammates, and it affects, how they feel about themselves. So to get the most out of themselves, those are the types of things that I think are really important for the mental coaches to help with right now, is how to deal with all the situations, not just the one on the playing field. So we're really lucky. We have a great, not just one resource, but several resources to help with that. But recognizing that it's more than just that 2 hours when they're on the ice. It's really about the whole experience they have. And from our experiences, because we didn't necessarily have that resource, for us the resource was the teammates, right? It was about knowing that your teammate always had your back, and that you were always winning more for the person beside you and not yourself, and that the team came first, and I was just a part of that, right? That's all the things that matter in terms of being mentally strong, especially when you're on the ice in those cases. And that's no different today than then. I mean, you could have four extremely talented athletes that play together, and that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to play well together. So if you can get that right chemistry, and you can really believe in each other, and you can trust each other, then that mental toughness becomes a lot easier, because you're not doing that on your own. You're doing it with a team. And I think that goes for business. I think that goes for every aspect of life. Doing something on your own is really hard, right? But doing something when you've got people backing you, it's a lot easier, and it's a lot more enjoyable.
That's why I get to be Ed's co-host on this podcast.
There you go.
Oh, you make me better. I agree with that. I wanted to follow up on one thing, David. You're in a lot of leadership roles, whether it's sports, coaching, scope AR. How do you build and maintain your leadership capability?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that I learn from those that are around me. And so, I've always just looked to be a part of it, one piece of that team, like I said. And I've got amazing co-founders in my company right now, that we've had for 10 years. And again, that wouldn't be 10 years if we didn't just, have this great relationship. But we have amazing investors that we lean on for advice, and we have amazing customers that we lean on for advice, and right through to your family. So I think for me, it was just one of those natural things that as I was growing up, my parents were always there to give me the honest truth, and sometimes not things I wanted to hear, but they're always there to make sure that I was learning from those experiences. But for me, it's always been about surrounding myself with people that I looked up to and ultimately want to learn from.
Yeah, so you surround yourself with people, colleagues, partners, friends, family that inform you of how to improve and build, I guess, a confidence to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. That's always been my, I guess, when I look at people that either on a curling team or in business or whoever it might be, it's like, look for those people that you're like, I'd like to be like that guy, or I'd like to learn something from that person. And it served me well, and I think that that's something that I'll continue to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and I was what do you love about curling? Very broad question, but usually, particularly with athletes, people in sport, there's a passion to getting involved, because when I think about it, you can't get involved in any sport and just show up and be successful. You have to have a commitment. You have to have an energy. You have to want to put in the time. So you probably love that sport that you spend most of your time with. What is it about curling that attracted you?
Well, it was a family first type thing where my parents both curled, and so it was something that I saw and I became interested in. But that doesn't necessarily mean just because your parents do it, you should do it. In fact, Alyssa was not a curler off the start. She wanted to play. She was just like her sister Hallie. She's like, I'm not doing my parents' sports. She played ringette for a number of years and had 2 really bad concussions. And we were kind of like, okay, that's it for physical sports. And so, reluctantly, she kind of tried curling and fell in love with it as well. But I think it's being around the teammates. It always has been about that for me. Whether because when I was in juniors, I had nowhere near the success that these girls are having. I never made it to my first national championship until I was 27 years old when I went to our first Briar, which is the Canadian Men's Championship, and we won that and went on to like just an amazing run over the next 10 years. But these girls have had way more success than I did, and I just kept putting my time into it, and I love being on the road with my teammates, and I love being out on the ice and just challenging myself to be better. And I definitely made some decisions along the way that showed my commitment to that. When I first moved to Alberta from Manitoba, I took a job at a third of the salary because the other job wouldn't allow me to keep curling. And
Wonderful.
Everyone's like, yeah, but you've never won anything. You want to just keep curling? I'm like, yeah, I do. I really do.
Yeah.
And, those are some of the things when I started an engineering company, a consulting engineering company. And about 3 years into it, we'd actually won our first Canadian Men's Curling Championship. And one of my partners had, at that point, given me an ultimatum: well, you're going to curl or you're gonna work. Which one? And I was like, ooh, probably shouldn't ask me that. Yeah. And so I sold my part of the company, and I moved on to curling full-time professionally for a few years before I found my current co-founders, and we started something that I'm just way more passionate about anyways. So it's always been something that I've just dedicated my time to. I just love being out on the ice. I would go.
So it's your people, it sounds like, a lot of the connections, the people, the social, the community. And so when someone says either do work or curling, that's an easy answer. And then you've ended up creating a team with others in terms of, sounds like Scope AR, where you can do it all.
Well, I found my new passion around the company, and that's when I retired from curling competitively. I retired quite young because I knew that you can't, at that point, I had a young family. Business was something I was very passionate about. And I didn't have anything more that I needed to do in curling. So I retired at actually a very young age from the competitive play. More recently, I've played a little bit with my daughter Alyssa in some mixed doubles, which is like amazing that I can play with my daughter in some really highly competitive events now. So I've always stayed involved in it, obviously through coaching, and now I get to play a little bit with my daughter too. But yeah, I had to make that decision also back in about 2011, where I was like, okay, I need to focus on family and work, and those are my new passions.
One of the things that you were saying in there, David, was around pushing yourself harder and striving for success. And we're coming to the end of the podcast, unfortunately. How does that always creep up on us? But I was curious if there's something that you could share, maybe as a parent or a coach of youth, that you would say, how can we help them to want to push harder for themselves? Like, make sure that it's for themselves, that they're doing it for them, because you always get the best results when you've decided it's for you. So is there any one thing that you could kind of, poke out for us and share with us that would really help coaches and parents navigate this area of moving forward?
Well, that's a tricky question, only because I think that the motivation does need to come from internal. I don't think you can convince somebody to work harder or try harder. I think what you can do is find mentors, find people that they idolize and go, this is who I want to be. I remember looking back and thinking about that in whether it was sports or business, and saying, that's what I want to do. And if you truly want to do that, if that's truly where you want to go, then you'll do what it takes to get there. But having a coach say, you need to do these things, and I'm going to make sure you do, that can work for a short term, but it's not the internal motivation that's going to get somebody to where they want to be in the long term. Those are usually, I think, short-term successes. But there needs to be that internal motivation. What you can do is help maybe, light that fire a little bit by showing them or introducing them to somebody or going to watch somebody or meeting somebody that's like, that's who I want to be. And to me, that's where the internal motivation can come from.
Yeah. So giving them some inspiration through others. Yeah. I've given Ed many an ultimatum, and he's never actually hit it. So I knew that wasn't the solution. Okay, we're coming.
Well, yeah.
Ed, can you believe we're coming to the end yet again?
It's gone fast. I wanted to talk actually with David about some of the work you do on the inner cities, which I think is a really important issue with the state of the world. But maybe that's for a future time.
Well, we could ask one question and then we'll finish. We'll close it out if it's something you can think we can address.
How do you? Well, I'm going to ask a big question, I guess, if I have one of them, which is, what do you see as that you devote some of your leadership time to improving inner cities? What got you involved in that, and what are some of the maybe strategies for how cities can get better?
Well, yeah, for a number of years, I was leading the Inner City Agency Foundation in Edmonton. That we more or less raised money for the 7 agencies that help support those in need. And I would say that when we talk about mentors, really, I was kind of brought into that and involved in it because of a very important mentor of mine, Bruce Saville, who is here in Edmonton. Had a very successful company, Saville Systems, for a lot of years, and was involved in the Edmonton Oilers, and just gives so much back to the community. And he's been in Edmonton forever, and just an incredible person, an incredible philanthropist who's just devoted a lot of his time to making life in Edmonton better for people here. So that was where you look at and go, well, that's kind of something I'd like to be involved in and help with too. And so that was kind of where I was able to get involved, was through the organization that he had founded. And I was fortunate enough to be able to take it over for a number of years. But it's what it does do, and I was able to expose our kids to that as well through. We would run these roast beef dinners, that we, obviously feed those in need. And it really meant a lot to my girls to be part of those dinners, to go and help out and to serve and see the people that came up. And I think we have this idea that we know those people that are on the streets, and for some reason they choose to be there or whatever it might be. And when you actually get to know them or spend some time talking with those people, or just serving them dinner and seeing the appreciation on their faces, and the thank yous that you get, and unfortunately you see a lot of those people year after year, you get a different perspective on maybe the way that we think life is in terms of choices. We're very fortunate to live where we live and have a roof overhead and all the benefits that we have of being being lucky, really, and being in this place. But it's important to see that, and it's important to recognize that those people mostly don't choose to be there, and that they're people just like you and me. So it is a big issue, and it's something that I know will be something that I'll continue to hopefully be involved in some meaningful ways going forward.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a important thing. I wonder when you get a chance to sleep with all the things you do, but quite amazing. Everything also seems to come together with you around your family, which I know which is wonderful.
Yeah, that's like I said, that was when I chose kind of business and family. I couldn't do all three, and I knew which one was not going anywhere. So I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful family and great kids. And Heather, as you met, is just wonderful. Will and I as well, and I definitely admire the work that she does in different ways in our community and bringing people into the curling club. And it's just we see a lot of sports that are kind of dwindling in numbers a little bit, and curling being one of them. Here in Sherwood Park, where we live, it's exploding. It's busting at the seams.
Wow.
And that's all because of her.
That's wonderful.
And it really is fantastic to see.
It's leadership.
Yeah, it's amazing what great energy can do for a community, right? So it's whatever that community is missing, and if you can bring that, sounds like Heather does it in spades. I know I was planning to do an event this year, and then it turned out that I was going to be away, but I was quite disappointed because it just sounded like it would be such a blast. So everybody check out Sherwood Park Curling Club. Ed, when you come to Canada, we'll show it to you.
I'm ready. I'm excited.
Dave, before we head off, we would love to know what your superpower is and how you water it.
Oh, I think my superpower. I think it's just getting the best out of the people around me, right? It's just I don't need to be.
That's a great superpower.
I don't need to be the person that's the center of the stage. In fact, even when we were curling, we always prided ourselves in another team that I idolized, Kerry Burtnick, because I didn't think they were the best 4 players in the world, but they're one of the best teams in the world. And we said that's who we want to be. And so it was never about one player, or never about an individual. And so if we can find ways to bring the best out of the people around us, I mean, that's going to make obviously just such a huge difference to so many more people than just yourself. So and how I water that is just, for me, being around our kids and seeing the success they're having and seeing them celebrate, and just being a part of that, it just kind of fuels your fire, and you just want to keep doing it as long as they're having fun, as long as they're being motivated. Or going down to the Sherwood Park Curling Club and seeing Heather out there with just all these learn to curl groups, and kids just having a blast. I mean, that just continues to, or wants you to continue doing the things that you're doing.
Well, throughout the course of this, you talked nonstop about the community, the people that you're working with, your clients, your team, the girls that you're coaching. It's very apparent to us. So I'll speak on Ed's behalf because we share brains sometimes. Is that it really is about the people and being connected with them. Yeah. So congratulations, Dave, on all you've accomplished so far in your career, both personally and professionally, and your family. And we look forward to having your girls on our podcast probably next. Hey,
absolutely.
No,
absolutely.
That would be a good one.
I think that would be a blast. We'd have one from the States and one from Canada. It would be fantastic fun. Yeah,
it absolutely would. It would absolutely would. I get the benefit of listening to microphones when they play that nobody else can hear. So I hear a lot of the things that are going through their head. And you need to draw some of that out. You would have.
That'd be wonderful.
That sounds great.
Absolutely.
That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. We wish you the best of luck in the Worlds. You guys are headed back to Finland in February, so we wish you nothing but great success, and you'll have our support for sure. And I'm jacked to hear more about your business in the coming couple of years, because it feels like you guys are just exploding right now. So congratulations there as well, Dave.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's an exciting time and lots on the go. I wake up every morning. I'm excited for the day. So, but thank you very much for having me here.
Really a pleasure to talk to you about so many different things. And you will get a copy of the Smart Mission, so you can see that chapter on knowledge. But so many different worlds you're in. It's very fascinating.
Yeah,
wonderful.
absolutely.
Well, thanks again.
Okay, take care. Until next time.
All right.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Thanks, Laurel.
Thanks for listening to the Mission Driven Leader podcast, presented by TaleoConnects.com. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review wherever you listen to the show.